The Roundtable is powered by Patreon, including supporters like Micah, who has their own webcomic, The Roommate from Hell. All Mary wanted was cheap rent and maybe a girlfriend. Then she finds out her roommate is possessed by a demon and her cousin, possessed by a demon-hating angel, gets a crush on him. And what's these rumors about illegal exorcisms? The answer to this and more awaits you in a charming web series with an art style I'm very fond of. It really encapsulates the supernatural and gritty vibe. The Roommate from Hell can be read on Tapas and Webtoons, as well as the main website, with updates on Mondays and Fridays. Check it out, link in the description. If you want a shout out on the Roundtable, consider supporting us over on Patreon. Shoutouts are our highest tier. Now on to the video. Welcome back to Crystal Clear! I'm ARTWITHKODA, and it appears Steven Universe Future will aim to satisfy Jasper fans in a very big way, while potentially persuading other viewers onto her side, as the first episode of this epilogue series not only decided to focus on Jasper, but conclude the episode in a way that leaves a promise for more. But this got me thinking, what will be Jasper's arc in Steven Universe Future? And how will it tie back to Steven? It appears they both parallel each other in a very significant way. As Steven calls out, Jasper likely feels as if she doesn't have a purpose, and she can't just sit around until conflict arises so she'll have one. But Steven may be walking a mile in the same pair of shoes. As pointed out at the end of the episode guidance, he doesn't know what he wants for his future. He wants to help people, but he's afraid he might be losing his touch, i.e., his purpose. And while we could already foresee Steven having his own back and forth with the emergence of Pink Diamond's mysterious destructive powers, it makes sense Jasper would have a back and forth of her own. So as I begin to crank out 100 more Jasper theories, this is where I want to begin. The prospect of Jasper having a new internal conflict. A classic struggle of good versus evil. So let's talk about it. Of course, spoiler warning, if you do not want to know any potential plot points for Steven Universe Future, please click off now. With all that said, let's dive in. If you've been around this channel for the last few months, you know that I've been pushing the idea that Jasper would play a large role in a potential rebellion against the Crystal Gems and Era 3. After all, this is the person who orchestrated an army of corrupted gems in an attempt to get even. And while it's clear Jasper won't be at the helm of such a devious plan, I wouldn't write out the probability of it happening just yet, creating a scenario where Jasper may be roped into it. One of the most interesting highlights of Rosebuds for me was the brief cameo of Holly Blue Agate, someone who's an odd one out in her environment. Although it's played for jokes, she clearly is not happy with Era 3, that she no longer has any control. Her authority falls under deaf ears. She longs for an order from the Diamonds, and seems to be pretty annoyed about their fixation on Steven, despite not having the courage to even communicate with him directly. And while we'll learn more about the Bluebird Fusion and their fate this upcoming weekend, it would genuinely throw me for a loop if Eyeball and Aquamarine, especially Aquamarine, no longer had any grudge against Steven. That they would have no desire for the way Homeworld used to be. But hey, if the premise of the episode is that Steven doesn't trust this gem, I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up being harmless by the end. But for the sake of this theory, let's say they would also want revenge or a comeuppance. Even beyond Bluebird, the fact still remains that I'm sure there are gems out there who would love for the chance to bring Homeworld back to what they view as the good old days. And this is where Jasper and her arc could come into play. When we reunite with her in Little Homeschool, she's living on Earth out in the woods. She's eradicated all traces of organic life, even grass, to the point where it would give you the same atmosphere as the Beta Kindergarten, where she emerged, and all she can do is train for a battle that may never come. The Diamonds have made peace for the Crystal Gems. Any potential threats are no longer on her radar. And although I mentioned this in the post-show, which you should check out if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it. It's the first step in having Roundtable podcasts where we can go even deeper into cartoons. I find it very interesting that Jasper is living on Earth and not Homeworld. While I'm sure Era 3 taking its course on Homeworld is a huge factor, part of me wonders if Jasper wants to re-own her identity. Find something past Pink Diamond. After all, Earth is the place she definitely despises the most. Which is why I'm amazed she would stomach it enough to live there. And that's the thing, I believe she's figuring herself out, returning to her roots and becoming a hermit because she really doesn't know what's next. Much like Steven, Jasper does not know what she wants for her future. Both Steven and Jasper are stuck. And much like how Steven believes he has a lot to learn from Jasper, even if her and Steven don't realize it, Jasper could probably learn a lot from Steven as well. So assuming Steven does visit Jasper again, I do believe instead of a spur-of-the-moment fight, they would rather simply engage in sparring. Steven trying to learn more about his power, and Jasper continually receiving a good fight. It's a win-win! But for Steven to learn Jasper's way of communicating through fist, I think Jasper unknowingly would open up to Steven. Jasper learning to communicate with words, potentially even opening up about her feelings towards Pink Diamond, as I'm sure the revelation of Pink Diamond's true identity threw Jasper for a loop. And while I'm sure this alliance of sorts would be troubling to the Crystal Gems, especially Amethyst and Lapis, Steven would brush it off as, she's learning, I'm learning. But let's be honest, trying to get a grip on your uncontrollable powers by bonding with someone as messed up as Jasper is kind of a recipe for disaster. And while it does make sense for the Crystal Gems to be opposed to Jasper, I really don't see much of a compelling story if they just dropped it at that. Steven, be careful around Jasper. I will, she's changing. I'm changing. And that's the end of that. No. I definitely believe they're going to push the envelope a bit. And that's where the potential threat of rebelling gems could come into play. Again, fighting is Jasper's life, but there doesn't seem to be room for much fighting as a Crystal Gem. Sure, we know from Bismuth's introduction that they could always have the occasional sparring match, but considering that scene was followed up with Steven showing Bismuth how to relax his way, I'm not too sure if gems getting physical with each other in a casual manner is something that's already present in Little Homeschool. It's something that could be ingrained by the end of the series, but I'm getting too ahead of myself. Forces opposing Steven could offer Jasper everything she loves. Fighting, fusion, and power. Things that are likely not presented to Jasper in a lifestyle as a Crystal Gem. Sure, there's fusion, but it likely wouldn't go hand in hand with fighting, and unlike in combat, it would put Jasper in a situation where she would have to find someone who would want to fuse with her and stay. Something that we know is a huge can of worms to her. It makes sense a rebellion would go after Jasper, wanting to recruit her because of her history, because of who she is, because of her status on Homeworld, everything I was pushing for the last few months. And it would put Jasper in a compromising position, because I do believe she can warm up to Steven, to the Earth. But the thing is, that's a lot harder for her to do, as opposed to relapsing and taking up the mantle as a villain once more. I do believe this is a viable route for Jasper's arc to take. Should there be a rebellion, the progress she's subconsciously making with Steven would seemingly go out of the window, Jasper rather helping out the antagonist. Once more serving parallel to Steven's arc, because she would have to face the question of, is this what you want for your future? Destroying everyone else's. Steven already offered Jasper a pretty solid future, teaching the gems at Little Homeschool, which of course she declined. But that doesn't mean she could never accept the offer. But again, it needs to be a back and forth. The Crystal Gem's worries being validated, but Steven's optimism and hope shining through once more. At this current point in time, we don't have enough information to figure out what would be the exact moment where Jasper decides, yeah, I am gonna be a Crystal Gem. Screw this rebellion nonsense. But I do believe for her to make that jump, she has to meet with temptation, perhaps even give in to the temptation, but in the scenario where her decision really counts, she'll do the right thing and choose the planet Earth. However, I don't believe she'll decide what she'll want for her future until Steven decides what he wants for his future. Why? Because I believe for both of them, that decision comes at the cost of figuring out once and for all how both of them feel about Pink Diamond. Because that's already what Steven's arc is building up to. The biggest and will likely be the final loose end of future. How does Steven feel about his mother? How should he feel about his mother? And by proxy, how should we as an audience feel about her? But I'm starting to get into territory of another upcoming video. Thus, whatever information Steven obtains that gives him his finite conclusion on his mother will be the same information that could have Jasper choose the side of the Crystal Gems once and for all. But as always, these are just my thoughts and I want to hear yours. What do you think? What's your speculation on the trajectory of Jasper's arc? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below or tweet your thoughts at Roundtable Vids. And for more of my own thoughts, you can find me at ARTWITHKODA. We're also on Instagram. Special thanks to ARTWITHKODA for creating an awesome thumbnail. For more of his wonderful art, you can find him on Tumblr and Instagram at ARTWITHKODA and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Link down below in the description. Help the Roundtable grow by either becoming a member of this channel or supporting us over at Patreon. Link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. ARTWITHKODA, signing out.